All right, so I think it's been long time overdue to talk a bit about investing in Orlando. I did one maybe 6-7 months ago around an investment property that I was buying, but I wanted to break down sort of the different types of investment opportunities that are here in Orlando if you are an investor, whether you live here already, maybe you already just want to keep your current home and buy another one, turn your old house into an investment property. I've got a lot of tips and tricks for you guys that are thinking about investing here in Orlando. Stay tuned. So I think I'm going to break this video down into 3 or 4 different parts. We're going to talk about short-term rental property, Airbnb kind of stuff, long-term investments, which would be like, if you're going to just buy one outright, the different kinds. And then lastly, it's some things to think about in each of these so that you don't make any mistakes in the process, or at least make less mistakes. The first thing I'm going to talk about today in regards to investments are Airbnbs. It's probably the most popular thing that I see on TikTok and that people reach out and talk to us about. And there's a lot to know. Like, first one would be, can you Airbnb all over Orlando? Unfortunately, no. Well, unfortunately, if you're an investor, fortunately, if you're a homeowner that doesn't want to live in an Airbnb neighborhood, some homeowners associations allow Airbnbs, other ones don't. Some cities specifically don't allow it at all, regardless if a homeowners association allow it or not. And so you have to kind of know what areas you're going to be looking at. But let's just say like Celebration, for example. Celebration was owned by Disney. A lot of people think, well, it must be an Airbnb community. In fact, it's not. They really are very strict on no Airbnbs. If they find you, the HOA, CROA, the Celebration Resident Association, will actually fine you per night that they find out that you're Airbnb-ing out your place. But right next door in the same zip code is Reunion. And Reunion's a very popular neighborhood that is plenty of Airbnbs. Something like 85% of the people that live inside Reunion Airbnb out their house when they're not staying there. Easy, close to the parks, all that kind of stuff. So let's break down maybe the most important things that you need to think about. Number 1 would be location. Can you do Airbnb or not? Number 2 about location, though, is how close are you to the parks? Universal, Disney, all that stuff's really important. You have things that are like down in Winter Haven, Point Siena, that could be 45, 50 minutes away from the parks. They'll allow Airbnbs, but do you want to have an Airbnb that far away? Are people even going to want to rent out your place that far away from the parks? The third thing would be budget, right? So can you afford this property? Are you paying cash? Are you getting a mortgage? Those sort of things. Most places now, banks are asking for 25% down on those second homes or Airbnbs. So that's something that you need to budget up front. The other thing is, are you going to self-manage or not? Now, a lot of these short-term rental management companies will charge 30 to 40% of the gross revenue of the property that they're going to take off of every single booking. And so that can really eat into your profits when you're starting to kind of come up with your idea of your financials. The third thing would be the HOA fees. Now, Reunion is an amazing neighborhood, but when you look at the social memberships, you look at the HOAs, especially if it's a condo, those will all start to eat into your profit. And so at the end of the day, on a short-term rental property, if you get a mortgage and you have a management company, if you're breaking even, that's probably the best case scenario. Very little time will you actually be making cash flow on a monthly basis. All right, so the second type of investing is going to be long-term investing. And let's quantify that. Like, what's a long-term investment? That would be anything that you're going to rent out a year plus at a time. And so typically those are outside of the resort markets. And really what you need to determine is, A, what is your budget? Now, I think a lot of investors, which I think this is a brilliant idea. I know team members of mine have done exactly this. They've left their current house, turned it into an investment property, and then either moved laterally or moved up into their next house. And here's why that's really important. A long-term investment is going to require at least 25% down on that investment property. But if you move up and you move it into a new primary residence, you're only going to have to put down 5, 10, 15, 20% to get into your next residence. So you can save a little bit of money, turn your old house into an investment property. It'll probably cash flow amazingly, and you can move on from there. But what if you're coming in from the area or you don't want to move from your next place? Well, you're looking at that probably 25% down for most bank situations if you're not paying cash. So once you figure out your budget, then you have to think about what area do you want to look in. We personally own in downtown Orlando. There's some emerging areas there, Lake Nona and Winter Garden, because I believe that appreciation in those areas is going to be great. The second thing about your budget/area is going to be cash flow. Now, what are the rental rates in the area? What are some things that you think you need to know about potentially management fees or HOA fees or any of these other kind of things when you're thinking through your budget? Those are all really important things to slow down and really understand. In my mind, if I'm making $100 to $300 a month cash flow after I pay a management company, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm looking at, can I make a few $100 a month after I pay a management company and then know that my property is going to appreciate conservatively 3 to 5% a year for the next 10 years. And then it's typically, almost paid off, and then we're doing well. So that's kind of how we approach the long-term investment game. Another way to kind of more passively, or maybe not invest in real estate, but be in the real estate space and make some money, is wholesaling. Now, you'll find some good and bad information online about wholesaling, but let me break it down of what it actually is. Say you have a friend or a neighbor named Mary that wants to sell her house but not list it for sale. Maybe it's a divorce situation, a probate. They just don't want the other neighbors to know that the house is sold. So you say, listen, your house is worth $400,000. I'll give you $350,000 for it. No agents, no inspections, nothing. We'll just make sure we close in 30 days. But if you don't have the money to actually perform on that, how do you actually make money in this process? Well, you can turn around and sell that to an investor for maybe $10,000 extra. So you have it under contract for $350,000, you assign it to another investor for $360,000, and then you keep the difference at closing. This is essentially an assignment fee. And so it's completely legal. You actually don't even have to be a real estate agent to do so. And it really just comes down to actually finding deals. That's like the hardest part about this entire process. The reason why things get bad raps is that there's plenty of people out there that will put Mary in a bad situation by not having an investor list lined up to actually buy these properties. And so you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to close on your house in 30 days, and then you don't perform. That looks pretty bad. And so this has been going around forever. I mean, decades still. And then now you look at like Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow Offers. These kind of companies do the exact same thing. They come in, they give you an offer, then they turn around and sell the property a couple months later for more than they bought it for. It's the same exact thing. And so if you're thinking about getting into the wholesaling space, the biggest thing you need to realize is that it's a lead generation game. You got to get out there, talk to a ton of people, find a ton of opportunities until you kind of have enough at-bats to where you can make enough money to then buy an actual long-term or short-term rental, depending on what you're looking to do. The next way to make money in real estate is really a continuation on the wholesaling piece, is flipping houses. And why do I say it's a continuation on wholesaling? Because the number one skill in flipping houses is not how pretty the kitchen looks and being on trend with different colors. It's actually finding properties off market. And so if you get a really, really good at finding properties that, the grass is overgrown and the trees are falling on the house and it looks terrible, or maybe you're getting really good at going down to the auction house and finding stuff on the steps of auction houses during foreclosures or whatever it might be, that is where you make the money. Because at the time the house actually hits the market on the MLS, it's going to go for at or over market value. And it's really hard to make money investing and flipping if you're paying more than it's worth, right? And so getting really good at that is a skill that people will gladly pay you for. And so that's my best advice. Now, beyond that, it's figuring out your time frame, the supply issue, the labor shortages, all of these kind of things are very, very important to know that if you're getting into an investment property that's going to involve kind of the flipping process, getting your trades lined up is a really good thing. The kitchen guy, the flooring guy, the roofing guy, having all of these people that you can really trust and know that they're going to give you good bids, on-time delivery is something that you really want to think through. And so that's my best advice to you. Getting really good at finding off-market deals, then lining up your vendors will put you in great success when it's time to sell that flip home. The other non-traditional thing that I see on TikTok and Instagram and a lot of these other people talking about is Airbnb arbitrage. What is that? Well, essentially you take somebody that owns a long-term investment in an Airbnb area, you rent it out yourself, you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $2,000 a month. And you know that if you can Airbnb it out 90% of the time or 70% of the time, that you could bring in $3,000 a month and you're going to net the difference, $1,000 in this example. Now, as a landlord, I would never do this. I would never allow a tenant to then sublet to somebody else. And it's in my contract. If you rent from me, it specifically says no subletting. And so there's plenty of people out there that will. And my thing is like, I don't want somebody, the wear and tear on the property. I don't want the liability. I don't want any of that stuff. And so there's plenty of people online that'll tell you that this is like very easy and that landlords love to do it and it's no big deal. I beg to differ. And so if you're trying to get into this, don't call me, call the property manager in your local area, talk to them about it and see what they think. But this is one of the thing you'll see quite a bit online. There's plenty of ways that you can invest in real estate, whether it's buying a long-term or short-term asset, or you're just going to invest in a real estate investment trust through your IRA. I still think real estate is a fantastic vehicle to build wealth. So if you're looking to buy or sell a house anywhere in Central Florida, my team and I, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. Make sure you reach out at info@pozekgroup.com, and we'll see you guys on the next video.